Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can be alerted when new content is released. Enjoy the video.
You'll always say the same thing. I should have never said that. I should have never done that. I should have never thought that. I should have never sent that email. And so people spend 70% of their time living in survival. And that's what begins to downregulate genes to create disease. And when you are in survival, you will focus on three things only. Your body. Got to take care of your body. Things in your environment, people in your environment, places you have to go in your environment, and time. The body, the environment, and time. And we begin to believe that we're bodies living in an environment, living in time, and we forget that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. But in survival, it's very difficult to create because all the blood flow goes to the hindbrain with those emotions and away from the forebrain, and you're more prone to react. And when those chemicals turn on, there'll always be a gap between the way things appear and the way things really are. It will alter your perception. And if you react during that chemical change, you'll always say the same thing. I should have never said that. I should have never done that. I should have never thought that. I should have never sent that email. Because now you're acting like an amped up animal with a big memory bank. When you teach people how to no longer live in the future or live in the past, trying to predict their future, return to the familiar past, and you teach them what it means to be in the present moment, and they labor for that present moment, when they finally hit that sweet spot, something amazing happens. You get creative. Because my definition of creation is when you forget about yourself. You are so present in the moment, you're no longer a face. You're no longer a skin color. You're no longer a gender. You're no longer a sexual preference. You're no longer a diet. You're no longer a profession. You're no longer a wardrobe. You're no longer a sports car. You're no longer a name. You are nobody. No one, no thing, nowhere, in no time. And that is the moment you are pure consciousness. And that elegant moment where you are pure consciousness, that is the moment you walk through the door to the quantum field. And after looking at 4,500 brain scans, if you can teach a person, instead of narrowing their focus, to open their focus and focus on nothing, space, focus on energy, all of a sudden those different compartments of the brain that were once subdivided, they begin to unify. They begin to synchronize. The front of the brain starts talking to the back of the brain. The right side of the brain starts talking to the left side of the brain. And all of a sudden, the brain is going into psychic union, because what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, the person feels more like themselves than it had in a long time. So, we've seen this in real time in our meditations, watching it, watching people do it. And now we're able to predict it when it's going to happen. And when that person is no longer thinking and feeling in the same cycle, they're gone. They're elsewhere. They are a thought and possibility. That's the moment their consciousness merges with a greater consciousness. That's the moment the subjective consciousness merges with the objective consciousness, the field, and they begin to merge together. And when they come back, they take a piece of it with it. They become more loving. They become more giving. They become more willful. They become more conscious. They become more mindful. Its nature becomes their nature. Its mind becomes their mind. And when we see this happen, we can look at the dimensional picture of the brain, and all of a sudden we start to see it synchronizing. The two halves are coming together. The unity of polarities, the unity of duality, is wholeness, is love. And the exact time that brain starts going into psychic union, That energy from these centers moves right into the heart. And boom, the field around the body can go up to 9 meters wide. Now they feel connected to something greater, no longer separate from possibility. They're no longer focusing on matter and objects and things. They've taken their attention off the electron and quantum physics, and they put it on the wave of possibility. That's what creation is. And once that energy hits the heart starts getting very organized. They're in love with the experience, and they want the moment to last. And when you see those two hemispheres come together in that psychic union, you can walk from the computer around and look at that person, and there are tears of joy rolling down their face. They feel connected to something greater. They are so whole that it is impossible for them to want. How could you want when you're whole? And I call that the natural state of being. That's who we really are. And we no longer feel separate. And the moment you step out of the way, that autonomic nervous system that's giving you life says, she's gone. Let's clean house. Because the autonomic nervous system is self-organizing. And it steps in and creates order where there's disorder. We've had people stand up that have had pain their entire life, have no pain at all. And of course, their first words are, I can't believe it. It wasn't me that did this. It was the power within me that did it. And so then finding the sweet spot of the generous present moment every single day of your life. The word meditation, the actual literal translation of the word means to become familiar with. That's what it means. So if you're becoming familiar with your unconscious thoughts, and now you are so conscious of them, so familiar with them that you would never go unconscious again, you are in meditation to know thyself. If you can become aware of your automatic habits and behaviors and become so aware of what comes out of your mouth or how you act, that you are so conscious and so familiar with those states you would never go unconscious again. And if you can observe those emotions in your meditation where you're frustrated and impatient and you keep settling your body back down into the present moment, and you're not letting your body be your mind any longer, sooner or later, the body, the servant, the animal, is going to surrender to a new mind. And when it does, there's a liberation of energy. And the body is no longer enslaved to the familiar past or trying to predict the future. And the absence of that emotional addiction is called joy. And there is a liberation of energy that takes place in the body, and we've measured it. When that occurs, then, now you're ready to create from a state of wholeness. And then as you begin to decide what thoughts you do want to put your attention on, and you repeat them and get clear on them, and you fire and wire those circuits in your brain, it's going to begin to become familiar to you. And as you begin to rehearse who you're going to be when you open your eyes, and you play it over and over, you begin to install the hardware in your brain. And if you keep doing it, the hardware becomes a software program. And if you can cultivate an elevated emotion before the actual experience, you are teaching your body what that future is going to feel like in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes and new ways that make new proteins, preparing your body for the event. And if you keep practicing cultivating those elevated emotions, it will begin to become familiar to you. So the process of change is unlearning and relearning. It's breaking the habit of the old self and reinventing a new self. It's pruning synaptic connections in neuroscience and sprouting new connections. It's unfiring and unwiring and refiring and rewiring. It's losing your mind and creating a new one. It's taking those emotions, body as the mind, and reconditioning the body to a new mind. It's pulling your energy out of the past and investing your energy into the future. And wouldn't you agree then, if your life is controlling how you think and feel, if your environment or your personal reality is reminding you of who you are as a personality, and the environment is that strong, and your body, which has been conditioned to be the mind emotionally, is running its programs and its habits, and you're so programmed into the predictable future because of the familiar past, because you've done it over and over again for years on end, wouldn't it be a good idea to close your eyes and eliminate the external environment? Play soft music in the background or put earplugs in so there's less sensory data coming into your brain so you can focus on your inner world. Sit your body down and don't let it get up and do things and eat and drink and feel. You say to the body, stay right there, you stay. And instead of thinking about the appointments and emails and texts and phone calls you have to make or what happened yesterday, the day before, 10 years ago, you're conscious when you leave the present moment and you slip into that elegant moment, the generous present moment. That's what meditation is about, to get beyond the analytical mind, change your brain waves and fall into the operating system where those subconscious programs exist. And I'm going to say that when you truly do this, and common people that look just like you all around the world in every culture are catching on, that they are surrendering an aspect of the limited self every single day to join the greater self. And we have these advanced workshops and we have 600 people or 700 people, and we work, but it's the most gracious and fun time of people's lives because they're with a community of people that are doers. You know what? In some days, we start at 6 in the morning every morning, but in some days I call the audience at 4 in the morning. Why 4 in the morning? Because they are instructed to understand about the pineal gland, and they understand about its metabolites that create a lucid experience and how to begin to change those neurotransmitters into other ones. They're given a whole teaching on that, and their brain chemistry is ripe at 4 in the morning. And I say to them, you don't come in 4 in the morning, that door is closing at 4 in the morning, but if you don't come, I'm not going to take it personally. It just means you want your sleep more than the mystical. It means you just want your comfort more than the unknown. It means you want your coffee, the familiar, more than the unfamiliar. But the students that show up, what they're saying to that intelligence within them, I don't want my coffee today. I don't want my tea. I don't want my shower. I don't want my sleep. I don't want my bed. I don't want my cell phone. I want you. You're the object of my affection. And they mine for it until they make contact. And when they do, they go for the ride of their lives. And we have measured their brains when this happens. And they are processing amplitudes of energy that have never been recorded in the history of neuroscience. Most brain circuits fire at about 40 microvolts of energy squared. Our students are producing 1 million microvolts, 2.5 million microvolts, 4 million microvolts. Whatever's going on between their ears is more real than anything that's ever happened in their past. They're having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. And what would happen to you right now if your senses were amplified by 25%? Everything you were seeing, everything you were hearing, everything you were smelling, everything you were tasting, everything you were feeling. If your senses were heightened by 25%, so would your awareness. And if your awareness is amplified, so is your consciousness. And you can't have consciousness without energy. They work together, and the brain is recording high amplitudes. And if experience enriches the brain, and experience produces emotion, they are changed in a moment. Because the inner event is more real than any past external event. And the past is washed away. And that person can tell you the experience that they had, and I have to believe them. Because when we see their brains doing that, we know they can't make their brains do that. So then, In closing, great time to be alive in the world, because in an age of information, ignorance is a choice. And that this is a time in history to not only know, but to know how, and to demonstrate all the changes you want to see in the world. I love the concept of emergence in biology. You ever see a group of fish all swimming the same way, or a flock of birds all turning in one direction? If you were to study that phenomenon in biology, you would think that there was some leader that everybody was following, that it was a top-down phenomenon. Turns out there is no leader. It's a bottom-up phenomenon. They are all one mind, and they are collectively sharing the same level of consciousness. There's a stigma that you and I have, that if you lead with too much passion in your life, you're going to get it in the end. Whether you're Gandhi or Martin Luther King or William Wallace or Joan of Arc or John Lennon or Abraham Lincoln, you lead with too much passion, most people get assassinated. But what if it's a time in history where it's not so important to die for the truth, but to live for the truth? And what if you're working on your fear and anxiety, and your neighbor's working on their anger and bitterness? Instead of looking outside ourselves, we're looking within. And that everybody begins to transmute these limited survival emotions into heartfelt, elevated emotions. And that everybody's leading. And there is a new mind, a new consciousness. And there's power in numbers. You can't take out everybody now, can you? The coming of the age that you hear about, coming of that consciousness, isn't one person. It's every person. And so retreating from your lives, just for a few minutes every day, to remind yourself of a vision of the future, and not getting up until you are that person. If you're able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, get ready, because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law.